Welcome to The Home and the Maker, sharing advice and encouragement about all topics homemaking and homesteading, and honoring the maker in all of it. Join Megan from Shine.fm for today's conversation.
There are a ton of things that go on the homestead, and Alicia's story is no different. Today's episode is all about her Clark County, Indiana farmstead, and we'll also learn more about what a CSA is and also how Alicia's farm is encouraging and educating the littles in her community as well. So thank you so much for joining me today, Alicia.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit, just to start off with, tell me about your homestead, your farmstead. I mean, you've got the Winkler homestead, Providence Farmstead. So how these interrelate.
So when we first got started, we were just wanting to kind of do our own homestead type thing. There's a long story that goes into that. We started off doing the YouTube thing, and when we finally found our farm, it took us a while. We just kind of grew into more. I wouldn't say more business, just as much business as it is personal, you know?
Mm,
So I feel like, yes, we're still growing our food, but we're also feeding the community.
that's cool. That's cool. So on your, maybe it was on your Facebook or on your website, you kind of talked about how you started off on this little
Okay.
2 acre plot of land, but
Right,
then you were able to purchase some family land. So you went from
right.
2 acres to 49
So
acres.
yes, and it's a huge difference. And actually, we own 49 acres, but we work on 96 here.
Wow.
And if I can start at the beginning, I will kind of give you the whole story, but we're going to go all the way back to 2007.
Okay.
That's when all of this started. We actually had just come home from a 10-day trip at Disney World, and a truck ran a red light and struck our car.
Mm.
And it was me and my husband, my 16-month-old son, and my 5-year-old daughter. My 5-year-old daughter walked away. My husband and I were in ICU and in the hospital for 2 weeks, and my 16-month-old son didn't make it.
I'm so
Um,
sorry.
it's a very traumatic story, and I won't go into any more
Yeah.
detail because then I'll just be crying the whole time. Um, But as we were dealing with our grieving, part of what we realized was that we wanted something that kept our family a little tighter together. And somehow
Mhm.
we ended up on this homestead journey. It kind of started with the guy at my husband's work who was into conspiracy theories. And my husband wanted to prove him wrong. And it turns out a lot of things he was talking about were true. And it led us down this rabbit hole of growing our own food. So we started off with 2 acres in the woods, and our little bitty tiny garden plot at the time was yellow clay. It was disgusting, and it didn't even grow weeds. We amended the soil with leaf, like leaf rakings that the city near us collected. So it was composting leaf mulch. They called it leaf mold, and we amended our soil with that. That soil is still, and they still garden in that space. We were able to grow quite a bit on that little bitty plot, and I'm wanting to think I'm thinking it was probably 15 by 20 feet.
Okay.
Not a lot of space, but enough that we could get a good start and kind of learn the ropes on how to grow our own food. We looked for a farm for 6.5 years. And we
Wow.
used to take my husband's vacations. We spent a week in Missouri looking at farms. We spent a couple of weekends in Kentucky looking at farms. We spent some time looking at farms in Indiana, which is where we ended up, which is where we're both from anyway. Um, we also looked online as far as Chile, South America. We
Wow.
looked at Idaho, at Arizona. I mean, literally all over the place. We found a few properties we really liked, and we thought, oh, this is the one. And then we would end up having something happen, a shady real estate agent, or we would realize that we're an hour and a half from any market if we wanted to sell any excess goods and realized it wouldn't work for us. So the stipulations were we had to be able to pay cash,
Okay.
and we wanted to be in an area that was homeschool friendly and carry friendly. So, that led us to the places where we looked, but we were just really struggling. And we'd almost given up several times. And it's like God was telling us to wait. I don't know if you're faithful, but it was like just this sign of just hang on. what we have is coming. And sadly, my husband's great aunt and uncle, they owned this farm. It was 200, almost 250 acres then, and it was a cattle farm. His great uncle passed away very unexpectedly, and
Mm.
his great aunt not too long after that. And the whole place was sold in an auction. So we were able
Wow.
to win 20 acres of it. And they eventually let us buy the acreage right around that 20 acres. So we ended up with 49 acres. So we were able to pay cash for it. So we didn't have to take a loan out on it, which was such a blessing, especially being
Mhm.
so close to a large metro area like Louisville, Kentucky. And my husband's dad actually inherited some of the rest of the farm. And so we actually use some of that too. So there's 96 acres total that we can use. It's not getting utilized as well as we would like right now. We spent pretty well all of our cash on buying the farm. So putting the infrastructure in has been a very long process.
Mhm. I'm sure. Wow. Incredible story. I'm so sorry
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank
losses.
you.
But wow, what a change from 2 acres to 49. What was probably one of the biggest challenges of going from this small plot to now having access to, you said 90 some?
96. Yes.
Okay.
So for the most part, um, the only things that we really do on my husband's dad's side of the farm has been like rotational grazing. We had dairy goats
Okay.
for many years. We don't have those right now, but we did a lot of rotational grazing with them. We've kept we have bees, so we've kept some bee boxes on their side. So we don't do a ton on this side, on his dad's side, but it's still even just the 49 acres or even just the 20 acres that we originally started with um, is such a huge difference from 2 acres in the woods because it's
Yeah.
20 acres of open ground. And
Okay.
learning how to watch the land and not rush to put everything in to make sure you're putting everything in the right location was a huge struggle. And we still to this day go, okay, were we that was at a good spot for the orchard? Did we really
Yeah.
put it in the right spot? When you have that much space, it feels almost overwhelming to try to make sure you do it right. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing, though. So, one of the stories I wanted you to talk about too, especially for people who are maybe getting into kind of the homesteading journey, but I mean, there's a world of fruits and vegetables out there that you can plant, but you have no idea what to do with. So, tell
Right.
me, I'd seen that you had posted on Facebook about the radishes that your son loved to
Right.
plant. So, tell me that story.
So he's 16 now. He just turned 16 this
Yeah.
couple weeks ago. So when we first moved up here, he was 6. And
Okay.
radishes grow really fast. So you can harvest radishes in like 25 days or so. And so planting radishes was his thing. He would just go and be like, okay, I need more radishes. And how many radishes can one person eat? So when I was growing up, my mom always sliced them and put them in water, like salt water. And
Okay.
that was the only way we ever ate radishes. So I didn't even know
Hmm.
what to do with all these radishes.
Yeah.
We learned that you can roast them, and I think that is the best way to eat them. It takes the bite out of them. I think they're
Okay.
very flavorful. So then it wasn't such a concern. Every time he was like, okay, we just pulled these radishes out, Mom. Where's more seeds? I need to put more radishes in. But that was his favorite thing. He was really big into, I have him actually on a YouTube video that I made years ago. Um, it was almost like he was making an advertisement. We were weeding the garlic, and he was like, I want homegrown food, and I want it this way, and I want it that way. And he said, so come to Providence Farmstead. And it was so
That's so
cute. So,
cute.
you keep those things forever because they're so precious. And now he's 16, and
Yeah.
he's a teenager boy. So that's all I'm gonna say.
That's so funny. So that kind of encouraged you though, as far as like
Oh, yeah.
you were almost forced into having to figure out what to do with radishes that you might not
Right.
otherwise. So even though you didn't feel like
Yes,
maybe like you're this cook with so much expertise, it kind of taught you.
it did. And I honestly have to say, my mom didn't like me in the kitchen when I was younger. So I didn't learn how to cook from anybody. I taught myself.
Okay.
And I love
Mhm.
to cook. I actually am was born without a sense of smell. So
Okay.
it affects my taste buds a little bit, but
Okay.
I actually could have seen me wanting to go to learn to be a chef somewhere because I love
Wow.
cooking that much, except for a lack of sense of smell really messes with.
Yeah. Huh.
So nobody's ever complained with the way I've put things together. Everybody always likes it. So I love coming up with recipes that use the things that I grow in a new way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, maybe not having the sense of smell, it kind of helps you rely more on
Right.
taste. So your food always tastes good.
Maybe.
Something I
Well,
saw on your
I hope
website.
so.
Yeah. Something I saw on your website that I was curious about. It was kind of like the idea that your farm is always open to wildlife, which is really cool.
Oh
But
yeah.
also, I'm
Oh
wondering,
yeah.
if you like, how do you combat that then when, like, say, the
Right.
wildlife is getting far too much into what you've planted?
Yes. Okay, so I'll start by saying when we moved down here, deer were everywhere and
Mhm.
rabbits. And deer were the biggest concern when we put our first garden in here. And I did all the deer tricks I could find. We shaved
Yeah.
Irish spring soap. I had my boys walk around and pee around the garden. We put dog hair around the garden. We tried all these things and nothing worked. Um, Basically, my husband was convinced the only thing that would ever work to keep the deer out was an 8-foot fence. And
Mm.
I had one other idea up my sleeve, and that was to space T-posts about 8 feet apart all the way around the garden and wind 5 or 6 strands of fishing line through the whole thing. I left a little space, like a couple feet, just enough to be able to kind of squeeze in and out of the garden.
Mhm.
Um, and believe it or not, it worked. So he was like, this
Wow.
is never going to work. This is the stupidest idea. So what happens is the deer would walk up to the fence and they can't see it, but they hit it and it flips them out. And they decide
Huh.
they don't like that. So
Okay.
the deer quit coming in the yard and
Yeah.
quit getting into our garden after that. The rabbits sometimes are a problem, and raccoons can be a problem. So
Okay.
we have to watch corn, and which I really don't grow corn anymore. It's just more trouble than it's worth. Melons, though, they love to eat my melons. Groundhogs have been a big problem. We planted about a quarter acre of pumpkins 5, 6 years ago and went to go down and start harvesting them, and everyone except for I think two had a bite in it from a
Oh
groundhog.
no.
So that was kind of disappointing. Um, the rabbits can get in there and really do a number, but our cats kind of keep the rabbits down. They tend to
Okay.
scare them off. They'll hunt them. So, having a couple of good farm cats is definitely an advantage to that. And we still
Yeah.
have dogs. So dogs running around peeing on everything, that scares a lot of animals off as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I was like, wow, this seems so open to everything. And my family
Right.
members are like, Megan, what do you know about like getting rid of squirrels? I'm like, I don't know.
Right. Squirrels are a tricky one, and as many squirrels as we have here, we haven't really had a lot of problems with them. I've been really lucky.
Oh,
So
okay.
that'll be one that I'll be worried about if that happens.
Yeah. Okay. So you have a lot going on with the homestead, the farmstead. Start with one of the big things that like anyone who goes to your website or follows you on social media would see is that you offer a CSA. So for someone who's
Yes.
listening or watching who has no idea what that even means, can you describe what that is?
Sure. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's a way for a farmer to work with the community with the people who want to purchase from that farm together. It helps the farmer out in the beginning because people who purchase a membership, which is what a CSA is, I'll go into that more. Um, they pay that money up front, and that helps the farmer be able to get whatever they need to plant that crop that year. And then, so what happens is they get a membership and they get produce out of my garden for a set number of weeks from that membership. So I started something new this year. I'm doing 2 8-week memberships. So I have a spring 8-week and a fall 8-week
Mhm.
because I found that in July and August, I'm overwhelmed with everything, and the garden usually suffers a lot until I
Mm,
can get the fall crops going. So I
okay.
decided to give myself a little break and try something different this year so I can quit stressing about it. So for those 8 weeks, they get a box of vegetables from the garden that, for those 8 weeks. So yesterday was pickup, and my customers got a big bunch of Swiss chard, a big bunch of kale. They got a cauliflower head, a couple of heads of broccoli, some onions, and something else, but I can't remember what right now. So I try to
That's
do
so fun
five to
though.
six things in a box per. If we have more, they get more. And that's
Mhm.
one of the things about CSAs is something fails, that's part of the agreement you have with the farmer. The farmer can't control the weather. The farmer can't control the bugs any more than, I mean, we are not organic, but we do grow organically. So, I can't control if like a swarm of grasshoppers comes in and eats everything. I wish
Yeah.
I could, but sometimes that's just unavoidable. Our biggest pests we really fight though are the squash bugs and the cabbage moth or the cabbage butterflies. Um, but that's just a risk they take. They agree with that. So it's in the contract, I'm taking a risk. I may not get much, but if I do have overabundance, then I make sure I share that with my customers.
Yeah, that's so cool. What led you to start doing this? I mean, you were kind of exploring the homesteading, growing your own food world, but then what led you to
Right.
go, we could do this kind of an operation?
So, a couple of things. First of all, sitting at a farmer's market for 5 or 6 hours and getting up extra early to harvest or harvesting late Friday and then having to store everything and then sitting there all day and hoping you sell it all. And if you don't, you come home and have to toss it did not
Yeah,
appeal to me and my husband at all. So,
right.
doing the CSA allows me to harvest only what is needed to pass
Mm,
that on and then, leave the rest of it. So I'm not composting multiple bags of lettuce when I get home, or bruised tomatoes don't have to be canned right away because I've packed them all over the place. It just made more sense for us, not only financially, but sustainably to
yeah,
do to share that way.
that's awesome. That's so cool. How many acres of all of the 96 are devoted to like growing food for like the CSA?
Probably. So my garden's a little smaller this year because I don't have as many customers, and I'm not sure why, but I'm okay with it because I feel like God was saying take a little bit of a break this year. Um, so usually our garden is probably close to 3/4 of an acre. I think it's probably closer to about a third of an acre this year.
Okay.
But then we have two orchard spaces in addition to that. And then sometimes we grow pumpkins or melons in larger plots in a different spot on the farm. So it could be anywhere from 1.5 to 4 acres a year. It just depends
Okay.
on what we do that year.
Yeah. My dream is to have an orchard. So tell me what you have growing in yours.
Okay. Peaches and pears. And then we
Cool.
have blueberries and raspberries and elderberries. Um, I am looking in the process of trying to locate somebody who has started pawpaw trees. I
Oh,
started some and I killed them. Don't know how, but I did. Um, Indiana is pretty common for growing pawpaw trees. They actually call them the Indiana banana.
okay.
And then I'd like to put in some grapes. So that is another one I'm going to be working on.
That's so cool. What does a pawpaw taste like?
It's kind of a cross between a banana and a mango.
Okay. Interesting. That's
I
so
like
cool.
them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many people do you have helping you with all of this?
Um, my husband,
There's the two of
sometimes
you.
my
Wow.
boys, but usually it's just me and my husband. And
Yeah.
my husband thought when we moved over this way, being this close to a big city like Louisville, it'd be easy to find another job. And he has never been able to find something comparable to the job that he had before we moved here, before we bought the farm. So he actually still works there. It's 2.5 hours away. And
Wow.
he works a weird schedule where he's actually off 14 days a month. They're not all right in a row, but he does have 7 days off in a row. But the place that he works, so he works and then his mom's got a 2-bedroom apartment, so he stays there whenever he's working. So there are some things that need to be done that the
Mhm.
boys have to help me with because he's not here.
Sure.
Actually, I had my 13-year-old till another area of the garden a couple days ago so I could put my sweet potatoes out. So
Okay.
um, I'm lucky he can operate the tractor because it makes me nervous. We have a
Yeah.
really, really old tractor and it's a little bit of a bear to operate. So I get really nervous whenever it needs to be used.
So with a lot of the things going on your property, you've got meat chickens, eggs. Something I thought was really, really cool that you do is offer classes for homeschoolers and for like day camps for littles. So
Mhm.
tell me about how you got
Yep.
started with this.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I've been a homeschool mom for 15 years.
Okay.
I started homeschooling my daughter in the middle of fourth grade. I pulled her out, and I've been homeschooling ever since. My boys have never been to school. Um, and I love teaching other people about a few different things. One is the nature around us and how to
Mhm.
appreciate it and how to work with nature in a way that sustains everyone. And another is how to grow food. And
Mhm.
so by starting classes that help weave in these lessons, I felt like it was just exactly what I was called to do. It
Yeah.
actually has taken such a front row seat this year that we are getting ready to break ground on a building. So we'll have a permanent micro school space, and
Oh,
I'll be able to offer a lot more once that
well,
happens.
congratulations. That's so
Thank
cool. I
you. Thank
love your
you.
passion for that. I'm just like, oh, the
Thank
fact
you.
that, little kids are going to get to grow up and know
Yes.
some of these skills and have those little seeds planted in their minds for the future is really neat. So,
Yes.
um,
Yeah. I have this past spring I taught two different classes. I have a preschool class that's called the Mini Naturalist Club. And then this year I started offering a homesteading class called Little Homesteaders based on the
mhm,
curriculum that I'm writing. So
cool.
it's been a lot of fun working with those kids. They're a little bit older, learning, they learned about starting seeds. They started a little garden in the school space. They've got actually, I pulled the first zucchini off today. So they have really just enjoyed blossoming in that space. And then my preschoolers are the most precious class ever. They are just amazing. Their wonder in their faces and just watching them just get in the mud and their parents are like, go for it, kiddo. And I love that because kids need play so
Mhm.
much because play is how a child learns. And they need so many different environments to be able to develop their brains properly. And by offering these outdoor classes, they are getting the opportunity to actually be able to play how a child needs to play to be able to be a
Yeah,
balanced child.
that's awesome. I love that. How do you
Thank you.
manage your time between all these things? Do you feel just overwhelmed sometimes with all the different things going on? Or do you feel like you've kind of got it
Yeah.
structured to where you're like, okay, I can compartmentalize between these different things?
So I would say that it's helped a little bit that I have given up volunteering for 4-H.
Okay.
I used to run a couple of clubs. I used to volunteer for a animal barn and help with things like forestry competitions, and letting that go has helped a lot. Um, but I'm also at an age where I think that my brain fog is starting to get worse. So like I had to set an alarm for today to make sure I didn't forget. And I think it's my age. I think it's a woman thing. So, once you get 45, things start changing and brain fog is a thing.
Okay.
I have found out the hard way that I will forget things if I don't program them in my phone with a little
Hmm.
alarm that goes off.
Sure.
That has helped me tremendously. And I still forget things sometimes. And I feel horrible whenever I forget things and mess things up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to go talk to this person about this thing. And I totally forgot. And, I just feel horrible when that happens. So uh, I don't know. I'm hoping that I figured out that I get a rhythm.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Yeah,
Um,
I hope so.
yeah. Last question I have for you. As you've learned about homesteading, as you've learned about, what God has for us in nature and the food that we can grow that He's provided, like what's the most impactful thing that God has shown you?
That's a hard one. I have a couple of things actually.
Okay, sure.
I think that it's super impactful to understand that God made our systems in this world to work together hand in hand. And that's one of the things I'm teaching my kids. I'm teaching the kids that come to the farm, look, here's a handful of soil. This is good compost soil. This is what sustains life in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Without it, we would all die. And
Mm-hmm.
isn't it amazing to think that there are more organisms in this than there are humans on this planet in this one handful of
Yeah,
soil? Because God
crazy.
made that to work that way. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that understanding that we need to respect those systems that God has in place and to be good stewards of that is super important. I think the other one is just understanding God has a purpose for everything that happens. And
Mm-hmm.
this stems from personal experiences with
Yeah.
losing our son. And we may not understand what those reasons are, but I do know that God has a reason. And even if I never understand it, it's going to be okay. It's
Amen.
hard, but it's going to be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Good. So good. Well, thank you so much
You're
for your
so
time,
welcome.
for your wisdom. It's so exciting to hear about what's all going on your property and what just the different avenues that God has blessed you to be able to kind of give back to your community.
Yes.
So thank you
Thank you,
so
Megan.
much for your time. If you
Absolutely.
are If you're listening or watching, following along, and you want to follow along with Alicia's homestead and farmstead, the Providence Farmstead, you can actually follow. They have a website. It's providencefarmsteadin.com. That's where you can find her Facebook and Instagram as well.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Home and the Maker podcast. And for other podcasts from Shine.fm, visit the Shine.fm podcast channel.